Welcome to Global Wisconsin, presented by the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Zach Zabel. Join us as we explore the vast economic opportunities and insightful veteran contributions within Wisconsin. From local startups to large enterprises, we're uncovering the potential of our great state. So whether you're deeply invested or simply curious, tune in as we delve into the opportunity of a global Wisconsin. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Zach.
How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming. Obviously very excited to create the inaugural episode of Global Wisconsin. I'm very honored, that you're here from New North and helping the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber, kick this off. So just to start, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks. And thank you again for inviting us. It's an exciting opportunity to really be able to share stories about not only Northeast Wisconsin, but all of the great opportunities we know are here in Wisconsin. But my name's Rebecca Deschane. I am currently Vice President of Talent Development with New North. New North is a regional economic development organization, and we serve 18 counties in Northeast Wisconsin. It is my home area as well. I am a girl from Crivitz, Wisconsin, just up north of Green Bay.
Bustling metropolis of Crivitz.
We have a stoplight, so it's all good.
Well, you got me beat.
Yep. But right. Proud to be from Crivitz and to be from this region. And it's just exciting to be able to see all the great things that are going on, and exciting to be able to be part of some of those exciting opportunities that we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hail from Phelps, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So we don't even have, I think there might be a stop sign, but definitely not a stoplight.
Yeah. We're like the only stoplight. Like if you take 141 north.
Sure.
We're the only stoplight until you get to Michigan.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so,
shout out to the stoplight.
Shout out to the stoplight. Turn left, visit Crivitz. It's all good things.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, giving a little bit of your background, and tell me a little bit more about New North. Where did New North start? What's the goal?
Yeah. So New North started 19 years ago, and it was a genesis out of an idea that bringing together people, right? A collective good is right. Rising tide raises all boats. And how can you bring business leaders and organizations together to really take a look from a regional perspective, a bigger picture, take a step back, and see where there's opportunities for everyone to continue to grow and to excel. So we were the first regional EDO to start in the state of Wisconsin. There are 9 other regional EDOs throughout the state. But we serve, like I said, 18 counties in Northeast Wisconsin. So Sheboygan to Shawano, Fond du Lac up to Florence, Marquette to Marinette County, and down along the lakeshore and everywhere in between. So excited to be home to the largest footprint, and we have the 3rd largest population density in the state as it relates to the EDOs. So, but really we focus on a couple core things. So we are one of the chief marketers for why Northeast Wisconsin is a great place for people to do business, for people to live, for you to visit, and for people to thrive. So we do a lot of marketing, both out of state and promoting cool things that have happened or are produced here in Northeast Wisconsin. We have a strong focus on business development. So we have a team that really leads that engagement with site selectors, helping businesses identify opportunities and places here in Northeast Wisconsin where they can start or expand their businesses, and then also be connected to that global marketplace as well. We work closely with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, WEDC.
Shout out to WEDC.
Shout out to WEDC, right? The state's lead economic development organization. But they have a really strong global investment team as well. So being able to connect individuals to opportunities for not only exporting, but right, how are there ways that we can attract more foreign companies to Wisconsin, right? How do we get them to invest and to grow and expand here in the state is really important. We also do a lot of work with the regional DEI initiatives. So how can we make sure that we as a region, we as a state, are welcoming and inclusive and celebrating and promoting our diverse heritage, our diverse opportunities, working with people to help start new businesses, right? How do we help advance that entrepreneurial spirit and things from that perspective? But also that you're in a community where if you don't look like somebody else or you have a different background, you still feel welcome and are included in those opportunities. And then we do a lot of work around workforce development and partnering with our local county and local organizations that do talent-related pipelines, right? So how are we maximizing upskilling and reskilling opportunities that we have here? How are we promoting our jobs that are available to the youth, right? So making sure they're aware that when they're driving by this big building, and it's a manufacturing building, that they're aware of all of the opportunities within there, right? It's not just about the manufacturing, but there's communications, there's marketing, there's accounting, right? So there's so many different things that you could do from that perspective. And then we've been leading some work with some of our regional industry alliances, so the Construction Alliance and the Digital Alliance. And that's really industry specific, but how do we help them advance opportunities, grow in their own professional development and knowledge, and attract that talent pipeline that they're going to need to grow and thrive, right? Digital tech jobs cut across every industry sector, so making sure everyone has those skills to grow and to meet those demands is really important, especially as we think about remote work, right? Those are opportunities that we have with our high quality of life, low cost of living. People can do those jobs from here. So how do we make sure that we have that, those skill sets and the talent for that? And then construction is the fastest growing industry in Northeast Wisconsin. So making sure that we continue to have that workforce that can meet demands for business growth going forward.
Yeah, and I know, recently, especially, post-pandemic, workforce has been a very hot topic. Not only, how do we recruit workforce from other states, but as you mentioned, how do we develop the workforce we already have? How do we advance people into maybe higher paying jobs or maybe more secure jobs that isn't temporary? That's it's not a small undertaking.
It is not a small undertaking, and there's so many different facets to it, right? So how do we work together, right? So how do we amplify some of the opportunities that are out there and make sure that they're being connected and not necessarily duplicate? People are going to do things a little bit differently, but if you don't know what else is going on, how do we make sure people are aware of those opportunities? But we recently completed a grant project with digital skilling, and just those foundational digital skills are more critical now than they have ever been. And people are being left behind. So you're going to continue to see that wage discrepancy and those opportunity gaps if we don't help people gain those foundational digital skills. So even if you're going into a manufacturing setting, you're still going to need to know how to do some of those computer-related options, right? So getting people those skills, working with local partners that can continue to provide those courses, and then helping them see where they can plug into other upskilling opportunities is really, there's a great opportunity for us to continue to explore those options.
There was something that you mentioned earlier that is really crucial, I think, to having any success, in some of the topics you've talked about, and that's collaboration with anybody dealing with workforce.
Yeah.
You mentioned, workforce boards and partners that you have in the area. Can you talk a little bit more? Well, maybe we just talk generally about, we mentioned what economic development, the goals are, attracting businesses, building businesses. Just real briefly for the audience, what does a workforce board do? What is their general purpose?
So workforce boards are entities that really are connected with the state department, workforce development. But they manage the federal WIOA grants and finances that come in to create opportunities for individuals to, gain those skills. So say, for example, there is a story of a business that will be closing, right? The business is required by law to submit a certain number of days. The workforce boards are the ones that are going to do that rapid response. They're going to go in, identify, job fair opportunities, identify, do you need some upskilling? What are your goals? How can we get you connected to some of those other opportunities? In the middle of the pandemic, we saw that as well, right? All of a sudden, everything went remote. Jobs were lost, especially in that service sector. During that time, New North worked closely with Microsoft and Generator to spin up Generator upskilling. So how do we get people rapid skill sets? How do we get them to leverage existing resources and connected with jobs? We're excited to see that Generator, right, it started in August of 2020, and it was really focused in Northeast Wisconsin. It's now in 20 different communities across the state, and they continue to work closely with people on those rapid skilling opportunities. And that's kind of what the workforce boards are there to do. They're there to see those opportunities. They're now funding some of those Generator type of programs so that people can gain those quick skill sets and move into those other organizations. But then they work closely with DVR, so Department of Vocational Rehab, right? So if you have some limiting abilities, helping you, identify what are your strengths, connect with those organizations where you can really come in and leverage your strengths and be able to be in the workforce and be connected to those opportunities as well.
That's, again, not a small undertaking.
Not a small undertaking, but this is why, right, it takes more than just one entity and one organization. And that's where, people or organizations like New North, right? We're not here to do all those different things in all of the communities we serve, but we're here to help those communities be connected to existing opportunities or to band together to work more closely, right? So how do we scale things that are happening and bring those ideas into other areas? So if something is happening over in the Wapaka County area, how do we make sure Manitowoc County might be aware of it, or we can bring it up to Marinette? So making those connections and helping to facilitate those relationships so that people can continue to build that talent pipeline is really important.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly at the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber, we have a similar approach, right? You can't be the organization that does all things. So we put a lot of effort into that networking piece. How do we connect with resources or organizations that we haven't connected with in the past? And identifying those gaps, either gaps in our skill set or gaps in our partners, and then try to find somebody that's already doing it versus, reinventing the wheel, as they say. And we've been really proud of how we've been, especially in the past year, kind of been able to navigate that a little bit, maybe better than we did in the past, and understanding that we don't have to be the end all be all, for all things veteran and business. And I know New North, obviously is an important partner of ours, and understanding that, we have, the economic development organizations, the EDOs you mentioned, we have workforce boards, and then, DWD as a greater entity, and you mentioned WEDC, and we have all the acronyms, right?
Alphabet soup going
Alphabet
on.
soup, and but it really is, as you mentioned, such a tall task is not going to be accomplished, alone.
Right.
And it really is the challenge to bring everybody to the table and try to accomplish something.
Yeah, and I think you're starting to see, or not even starting, but I think there's more collaboration that happens than I think people see, right? It doesn't all happen out in the front.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that happen in the background where people are sharing ideas and working together. For example, the Veterans Chamber, you guys are the foremost experts on, resources and support for our veteran-owned businesses and helping other businesses do a better job of connecting with the veterans that are in their employ. Right. So how do we make sure that we're having those communications? I know we've had several conversations as we think about, from a New North perspective, one of our top talent attraction priorities is transitioning service members and their families. Right. So how are we connecting them to these opportunities we know abound here, but also that they feel connected, that they feel like they have that buddy when they get here. Right.
It's just not another station.
And it's not another station. That transition we know can be a little bit challenging, but how do we work together? Because me going out and doing one thing while you're doing the exact same thing, but we're not doing it in partnership, it doesn't make sense. So I love that we have that partnership where we can say, how do we leverage each other to make a stronger influence on the work that's being done. But I would say, right, I've seen the growth and the maturity of the Veterans Chamber over the last several years. And it's exciting to see really that outreach and those connections that are happening. And it's a great example of, some of the diverse chambers that we have here in the state of Wisconsin, and that they do meet, right? The heads of the chambers do meet. They do get together. They do have those conversations on a peer-to-peer level that really help them, I think, right, you're doing that. Tell me more about how you started that engagement, or, hey, I'm going through this really challenge. Anybody else experiences? How can I help you? And I think that's one of the great things about, Wisconsin, right? That Midwest, we're here to help each other, right? We're going to give you a hand up, and we're going to help you along when we can, because it's not a winner take all type of mentality that really is helpful.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned diverse chambers, obviously, and you mentioned diversity earlier, as something that New North is focused on. I know my conversations that I have with businesses, not all businesses are in the same point, in
that
the DEI journey. And I know some businesses are a lot more comfortable with that veteran conversation because, we mentioned a lot of things, but Wisconsin also as a whole, and I would argue Northeast Wisconsin specifically, is incredibly veteran friendly. We don't really face a whole lot of social obstacles externally. A lot of the issues people bring to the table, it's not because it's not a welcoming environment or not because there's not resources available. And having that conversation with businesses where, if you want to explore diversity, the veteran space is sometimes easier, for some people to start. And obviously with the understanding that the United States military is the most diverse workforce on the planet.
Most diverse.
So if you hire more veterans, inherently, it suggests that you're just going to become more diverse as a result of that. And so that it is nice to highlight, that kind of collaboration with our partners in other diverse chambers, with our other EDOs and workforce boards, and just really sending that message, right, that consistently, DEI is not, and I recently, spoke about this with Greta Lax, who's a DEI consultant, and she was kind enough to allow me to participate in her panel, so shout out to Greta. And that was something that I really wanted to really hit home, that, DEI is about being more productive, about being more innovative. There's not a political slant or, some sort of agenda behind it. At least when we do it, and I think the right way to do it. And the panel agreed, that there was an optimal way to approach that. So I just wanted that to kind of be on the record, right? That, DEI is not, it's not a bad thing. And something I said on her panel that I really want to repeat is, if everybody agrees about what's going to be talked about in the meeting doesn't accomplish anything. So, you should be trying to be innovative.
Yeah. Right. And you can disagree without being disagreeable.
Correct.
Right. Like
Correct.
There's ways to have those productive conversations. Yes. And you don't always have to win. It's a really important thing that, yes. Right. The older I get, the more I recognize you don't have to always, you can be right, but you don't have to win type of concept. But, to your point, when people hear diversity, they generally think only of ethnic diversity.
Sure.
And, that's very limiting in and of itself. So, expanding those conversations and helping people understand that those things can really affect people right next to you who you think look exactly like you and are going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
But there might be something that you're not aware of. So one, just be kind to everybody, right? Two, understand, it's just a really good, it's just really simple.
Right.
It's not simple, but it should be simple. Two, right, is just, understand that people come from different backgrounds. And again, you don't always have to win, and that everybody can win when we give everyone that fair chance to be engaged and to be involved. And how we create opportunities and engagement and awareness really is going to help elevate, individuals in the workplace, individuals to start their own businesses. We've been partnering with the Diverse Business Council to create Widen, So widen.biz. So shout out for Widen, WIDEN.biz, BIZ. So if you are a diverse, women-owned, veteran-owned business, this is now a new platform that we've developed for the state of Wisconsin to really capture all of those businesses across our state. And there are so many, and some of them are small shops. They're one or two people. They might be the bakery next to you. It might be the barber shop. It might be, a huge manufacturing company. But they all have, being able to elevate that they're out there. And as people are beginning to look more and more at the procurement process and some of the federal requirements as it relates to working more and being more intentional about working with diverse entities, this is going to be a great way for people to be able to search for those. So if you're looking for a caterer for your next event, take a look, right? See if there's somebody that you might be able to support. And that one small act can really help that business to elevate.
Might be a massive account that
exactly
just because you don't shop or sell with your own wallet.
And the Widen.biz is really nice because it doesn't have the same requirements for the state certified things, which are great. People should, as you're growing and you're able, continuing to work towards those certifications is a fantastic idea. But sometimes it might not fit your business plan, and it can be an arduous process to go through that. So being able to take this first step to be able to get your name out, to be able to get that information out, and for other entities to be able to start searching on a common platform. So widen.biz, we want to get that out there.
Sure, absolutely.
But that's a great way for us as a state to begin to help elevate all of the businesses in our state.
Absolutely. So fantastic. Definitely check out widen.biz. And anything having to do with, a particular social identity. I know in the veteran community, we sometimes run into veterans that for one reason or another maybe hesitate, to identify. And I know when we talk to businesses and we talk about best practices for creating and optimizing ERGs and all of the processes that go along with that, I don't think there's anybody we've talked, well, how do we get the veterans to identify? Because it's a federally protected class. You can't, you're like, well, we know you're a veteran, so, come over, and you can't do that. So as far as Widen and all these various diverse categories, for lack of a better word, what's a way that maybe the Veterans Chamber or other organizations could have a narrative to encourage people to self-identify and go through that process? Yeah,
that's a great question. And again, I think veterans are so proud, like specifically for the veteran community, that they're going to come in and they're going to do their job, right? And they're going to lead in doing the work that they're there. And that's, they're very proud of being a veteran, but don't necessarily lead immediately with that.
Right.
But as we're thinking about ways where organizations that do have that or, wanting to be connected, I know Widen is, the team is working on some communications. So it's fairly new. They just launched it within the past month or so. So they're working through some of those, that process piece. But being able to just get that information out, right? Links on your website to encourage people, right? If you're hosting kind of those, pitch contests, or you're hosting opportunities where, entrepreneurs are getting together and connecting with one another, just sharing that information. People can come in, they can do that. We're looking at putting together a roadshow for it as well. So how can we go into different communities? How can we partner with the Veterans Chamber, or the Hmong Chamber, or the, Latino Chamber to come in and host an event where people can start putting in their information, right? And it's a really simple process, just being able to describe your organization, who you serve, kind of your location, things of that nature. But it starts you to think about that marketing as well as that business, right? Sure. So how am I telling other people? What's my elevator pitch that you probably already are working on and perfecting? You're just going to put it down into a paper and put it in. So
yeah, awesome. I'm very interested to see how that develops, and obviously we want to support that because as you mentioned, whether it's supplier diversity or corporate social responsibility, whatever the angle or the motivation is, that could be potentially, lucrative resource. So I appreciate you, raising awareness for that. I do have a topic that I'm incredibly excited to discuss.
Hit me with it.
And I'm going to do a quick transition here.
All right.
So I'm somewhat of a football fan myself.
Just a little.
Just a little. Okay. And I think, the powers that be, unfortunately, a Super Bowl here in Green Bay may or may not, at some point in the future occur. But the big news was Green Bay, winning the bid for the 2025 draft. And
so exciting.
I'm a football nerd on the level that, I watch college mainly to be aware of the talent entering the NFL.
Okay.
And I watch the draft. I watch the combine. I watch all of that. So putting my nerd on blast here a little bit. I will be attending in some way, shape, or form. I will be there. But obviously from a business context, there's a lot of opportunity that comes with that, moving or coming to Green Bay. Could you talk a little bit about maybe, what is being prepared, or maybe something should be businesses big and small should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. It is exciting, right? And to be chosen, I think Green Bay knows that we can do those things, and the fact that we have actively gone out and promoted and shown, right, hey, put us on the map, we can do it as well as anybody else. It's great for the NFL to recognize that we can do it, right, and that we have that capacity. But it's going to be insanely amazing, is all I can say. We have already started some conversations and some planning. So right with my New North hat on, understanding, right, the influx of individuals that are going to be coming into our region, right? And they're not just coming to Green Bay, right? They're coming to Northeast Wisconsin. They are coming to the state of Wisconsin. When you think about the impact that's going to be held, I had notes here. They expect the economic impact for the state of Wisconsin to be $94 million. That's all. In the Green Bay market alone, about $20 million. So when you think about that influence and all of the work that's going to be taken, again, we just talked about the Widened Up Biz platform. That's a great place for you to be able to say, I can provide security. I can do catering. You're going to have a lot of different entities coming in and out that are going to be looking to be engaged.
And they're not looking to peruse Google. They want a platform. They want
a place to go. Our local businesses that are going to be inundated are going to need resources, are going to need help. So being able to have all that information out and readily available is really...
So you might not be a vendor for the draft. You might be a vendor for the draft.
That's correct.
Because there's going to be a sudden influx in demand for everything.
Right? So get your house ready, right? Make sure that you are within a local ordinance to be able to go out and to rent your house and see what that means. But, when we're looking at it, we have some staff that are actually going to the draft in Detroit this year, right? So they're going to go to scope it out. What is it that's happening? What are the things that people are engaging in? What are the type of events that people want to be seeing? We're looking at how do we engage our site selectors to be here during that time, to be able to see that vibe, right? We're going to have our Royal Showcase at that moment in time, right? So how can we demonstrate like all of the things that we know we're capable of, but now we're going to be on this really national, international stage to be able to really demonstrate that for others. So we're excited about finding those different opportunities, not only to promote the region, not only to showcase that we are more than just the beer and cheese, right? It's a great starting point. It's beer, cheese, and, right, we have innovation, right? We have technology. We have clean water.
Right.
Not all of you can say that, but Wisconsin, we have that clean water. So, what are the different ways from that we can leverage different organizations, that we can be connected, that we can showcase and highlight? I know the Packers have a committee that they're putting into place, and they're going to have multiple committees that they're going to be looking for volunteers to help support. So if you're going to attend, Zach, I don't know if you want to be part of the planning piece, but there might be some opportunities there as well But, what is it that we want to showcase about, Wisconsin and making sure that we get people there? But
you have that moment. Let's do it.
But it's going to be, again, the last couple drafts. Where did we have? In Kansas City, 57% of the visitors were from within driving range of visiting the draft, and 43% of them made it were from Kansas or Missouri, and 64% made it an overnight trip. Right. So when we think about hotel capacity, right, you're thinking that this is probably all the way up from the UP down through Madison, Milwaukee area.
Iron River, get ready.
Iron River, Menominee, Michigan. I hope you're ready to go. Iron Mountain, get it going.
Yeah.
So, thinking about some of those different aspects of, it's not just Green Bay.
Right.
So if you're down in the Milwaukee region, what are you doing to be ready? And they have a big convention coming in this summer. So, understanding that, okay, you have this many people coming in. Okay, now how do we do that again? Or how do we connect and, showcase that?
Sure.
And we did a great job when we held the Ryder Cup too, right? We hosted the Ryder Cup.
Which was also a phenomenal opportunity.
You think about that.
Right. You mentioned, the RNC coming to Milwaukee. I know in the past, we've held national conventions, for both parties, and just witnessing it's almost the same, supplier diversity. It's a big deal to have that event in the state, and it is a sudden and massive influx in demand for everything, from transportation to napkins. I mean, it's literally everything that you can imagine to accommodate that event. And the easy stuff, when it comes to hospitality, and obviously people are gonna have to stay somewhere. But they also have to eat somewhere, and there's going to be a sudden influx and stress on infrastructure, right? Roads, sewers, it's everything. So the amount of planning that goes into these events is really, just for me in my role at the Veterans Chamber, to be exposed to that for the first time, and none of my other roles have I been a part of that. And I had those conversations with those committee members, and just understanding, like we mentioned, economic development, that these events are also a massive, undertaking, and finding out how we can empower our businesses to maximize that benefit, because opportunity, is just opportunity, until you convert it into however you define success. So that's whether it's the RNC or the draft or any national or international event. Right.
We have so many huge activities that happen in this area. I don't think people, when you stop and take a step back to think about that. But to your point, right, it's opportunity. But if no one knows that you can help meet that need, right? So again, how can we help elevate those different businesses? And not only to connect them, but that they can be out, right, pounding the pavement and knocking on the door and raising awareness that they can provide that service, right? We can help meet this need as we're butting up against some of these really major events over the next, 18 months.
Right. And, you mentioned EAA, and that's where my mind went. Obviously, being an Oshkosh resident for a long time, since 2013, that's always, it's a thing. Some people embrace it, and some people, try to avoid it. And I'm doing all my grocery shopping for 3 weeks, so I don't have to go to the stores because you're going to be nuts. And then you mentioned, people trying to maybe get a little personal revenue out of it, renting out their homes. And obviously, that's an opportunity that a lot of people take advantage of. But it comes to businesses, that's every year, most Oshkosh business, if it's anything customer facing, there's some plan for that couple weeks.
There is.
When you have 500,000 people show up for a couple of weeks, that's a big deal in a town of 70,000-80,000 people. So I think, at least in the Oshkosh Plus, like you mentioned, this isn't just a Green Bay thing with the draft.
Yeah.
EAA is never just an Oshkosh thing. People stay in Green Bay, because if you try to find a place too late, that's maybe the closest you're going to get.
Not in luck.
Right. So, but no, I think that's an important narrative. A lot of the stuff that we've covered. That's I'm excited, just from a personal note.
It is going to be fantastic. I mean, when you look at Lambeau, just around Lambeau on a game day, right? And now you bring in like all of these other pieces of the puzzles, and you think about those first phone calls, and where are people at, and that the Brett Favre, that's the iconic photo now of Brett Favre of where he was when he got his phone call. So just, thinking about how we as a state are really putting that best foot forward in those moments is pretty exciting. And I'm a football fan as well, so I think it's just exciting in and of itself as part of football, to be part of that narrative.
And you mentioned, in some ways, getting the draft is a demonstration of Wisconsin's success holding these big events, but at the same time, it is a bit of an audition, simultaneously. Absolutely. Because this also needs to go well, so we have more, opportunities in the future across any number of sectors. So I think that's the call to action.
And I think
on board.
For Wisconsin, it's not that we, can we or can't we? It's that we don't promote ourselves.
Right.
That we're there.
Less,
right. So how do we?
Braggadocious.
What word?
we don't
braggadocious.
I like it. We don't brag.
We don't.
Right. So it's but that's even greater. That's a regional.
It's our humbleness, right?
You don't do your job to pat yourself on the back. You just do it.
Put your head down. You go to work. You do the things that need to be done, and you don't need to, be banging the drum about it.
Right.
But that's where we lose out sometimes. And it's exciting to see as a state that we're starting to do that a little bit more. And that we're actually, maybe not that we're out there jumping around, gaining attention, but that we're getting recognized for that work despite that, right? So when you think about the recent federal announcements that Wisconsin received a tech hub designation, and not only did we receive that for biohealth and manufacturing, by the way, we got a $500,000 planning grant, right? So not only did they see, there's opportunity, they've already invested some money for us to really, cultivate that plan that's going to help advance biotech, biohealth, biomanufacturing in our state, which is, there's a lot of it. And people, I don't think, realize just how much of that happens here in the state of Wisconsin, how much our manufacturing, entities, especially in Northeast Wisconsin during the pandemic, switched what they were doing to meet the, PPE requirements and being able to get that information out. We also have 2 NSF Engine awards, right? So again, federally recognized, one for water, right, and manufacturing. So again, we have that clean water here in the state of Wisconsin, but how do we, one, make sure that we have it, and 2, what are the ways that we can have that manufacturing to help other people realize that same benefit? And then the AgriScience award that was given to WISIS, right? So how are we making sure that as we're going into agriculture, that manufacturing and technology in agriculture is huge. So how do we help make sure that is being elevated and that we continue to, right? We have that agrarian background.
Right.
How do we continue to maximize and be that supplier for others?
Yeah, one thing that you said about, we were talking about the kind of Midwest mindset. Again, to bring it full circle to the veteran context, that's something I hear all the time from hiring professionals. I interview a veteran and they're polite, they're professional, they do all of those things, but they don't really talk about themselves. They don't talk about what they've done. They don't talk about, I don't know, I already look at their resume and I'm somewhat confused. And then I interview them and they minimize and downplay everything. And the conversation we have is, that's what you're trained to do. So not only culturally in the Midwest, but then you enlist or become an officer in the military. And it's the same thing, is you don't win, we win. It's not what you did, it's what we did.
Right.
And the language, there's a lot of we when you interview a veteran. And that is not because they didn't do anything. That's inherent to how we are taught to communicate. Whether it's our own evaluations when we're writing those up, or somebody else is editing the evaluation, or whatever that process looks like. It's, we did this and we did that, and as a collective whole, we achieved this great thing at a high level. Okay, well, what did you do? Well, I was a part of, and it's just this constant mindset. So I just, again, not entirely related, but when you said that, it's almost compounding, where if you're from the Midwest and you're a veteran, you're taught to be humble from day one. So just for all the hiring professionals out there,
for all of the hiring professionals,
just be aware.
Yes. And when you see that there, well, let's pivot here, right? I know we've talked about other stuff, but we're going to go off on a tangent.
Tangents are great.
Right. If you're a hiring professional and you know that they're in the military and you can see that they have been in the military, one, do some of your own research. Research their MOS. And if you were watching Jeopardy last night, you will know that means military occupational specialty, which is going to tell you, what they did. So if it's not translating in what you would normally read as a civilian, do a little more digging on your own, and don't just write, well, they're not part of this. But then also understand, if it's not a one-to-one match, veterans are some of the most adaptable and capable individuals who can pivot to that quickly, that they will learn quickly, because that is what they've had to do throughout their entire career, right? You don't get that extra training time to learn how to fix something when you're in the middle of an urgent situation.
Correct.
So understand that even though they're not a one-to-one, you're hiring for, right, not for this one specific skill set, but that they can do multiple skill sets and kind of go from there.
So in the civilian context, we talk about higher education, bachelor's degree, and many times, either in my bachelor's or my master's program, it was always the narrative, you don't get a degree to show how much you know. You go through that process to show that you can learn. And I think that is a narrative that is either unspoken or lost in the veteran context, where, yes, I was for myself, I was active duty Navy for 6 years. If you Google, what I did, electronics technician, you'll get a list of stuff. But in that job title, it doesn't talk about all the damage control maintenance I've done, working with fire bottles and emergency lighting and preventative maintenance on watertight doors. None of that is on there. And none of the work that I did, because again, in a casualty situation, there's not a lot of need specifically for low-ranking ETs. So you go to a repair locker, and I was a stretcher bearer working with corpsmen in training. Luckily, never had to execute the skills, but learning about being a stretcher bearer during a casualty situation, on moving injured personnel throughout the ship during a casualty. You're not going to find that if you Google ET either. So that's, and then on top of all of that, after I separated, I went to business school. So none of that had anything to do, but how do you, and that's the challenge we have as veterans, is how do you encapsulate the daily, right? It's okay, I have this title and I was in for this long and I'm at this rank, so that's the Googleable stuff, if Googleable can be a word.
That's where you look at their job description, and that's the other duties as assigned, because I think 90% of your job is actually the other duties as assigned versus the other stuff. So I agree, though, it's having that conversation though, right? And then you don't get that unless you start having a conversation.
For sure.
And coming into it with, as a civilian, coming into it with an open mind to hear what is being shared, and then to inquire, right? Ask questions. If you didn't understand, help them draw it out of themselves, because they're not going to give you, a long spiel about it. And they are nervous as heck about this. When we used to travel, when I worked for the state, when I worked for WVCC, and we first started traveling to the military installations to do the different career events to encourage people to come to Wisconsin, we would have opportunities to do mock interviews. And you are talking to these individuals who have been in the military for 20 years, and some of them have tears in their eyes because they're like, I don't know anything else. And, I think that gets lost on people, because we think of military, we think of this, right? Oh, they're going to come in, they're going to do this.
Capable.
They're very capable, but this is a very different situation.
Yes.
Right? Everything that they've had now is kind of thrown out the door, and you can be anything you want, but not here, and then go forth, do great things. And you don't have that network that you would have had, when you go into a new community, right? If you're transferred to a new base, there's a network for you to come into, and that's not the same here.
Layers of infrastructure to receive you when you arrive.
Exactly. So, do you have an ERG? Do you have a veteran within your employee that could be, a resource? How do you help connect them?
Yeah, have you partnered with local nonprofits, your VSOs, your Legion, your VFW, your DAV, Because you don't have to do it yourself right away.
Don't have to do it yourself. And there's organizations and there's tools and there's resources for people to really be engaged. But, give people a chance, but you have to help draw them out a little bit and just not, wipe them out before they have that opportunity to show.
Well, I think this is a great spot for a shameless plug, because here at the Veterans Chamber, we have our Invest in Vets program. And just for the audience, the backstory for that is we have those great resources with DWD, WDVA, New North, and the partnerships that we have. And, the even greater beyond DWD, you have DOL, Department of Labor has their recognition of companies that do a great job, with hiring veterans and retaining veterans. But what at the Veterans Chamber, again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. So where was the gap, or even if it's small, what can we do to help? And one thing that we identified is, DWD, DOL, other organizations that have recognition programs. Those are fantastic to highlight people and organizations that are already winning. But where's the playbook or the training process to get people there that aren't there? And there's some of it, right? There's bits, but we wanted a more comprehensive approach. And that's what the Invest in Vets program is. It is a, to steal Saul Newton's, he said, soup to nuts. Like this is the everything from, onboarding, recruiting, retention, with ERGs, development in between. How do we leverage the veterans we already have? How do we create an environment where they want to identify, where that social identity is perceived as being safe? It's okay if I am a veteran here. I don't have to just be, Steve or Stacy. I can be the veteran, Steve or Stacy. So that's kind of the very high level of what we're trying to achieve with Invest in Vets. And it's all on our website, if anybody wants to check that out. And obviously, New North being a partner in that initiative, and just trying to find these businesses because, again, in this veteran-friendly environment that we've already identified, being, veteran-friendly is one thing, as yes. You've said how many times, right?
Veteran-friendly is one thing, veteran-ready is intentional. And
that's the, that's what we're trying to achieve with that. So.
And I applaud you for that because there's a lot of great desire for organizations to want to do more and to do better. But to your point about having those resources or being able to distill what's in that resource, right? I always say the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time.
Right.
But when you're inundated with do this, it becomes overwhelming, right? So how can you find, right, being able to connect with you, being able to connect with us at New North, where we can share that partnership, but what's that one thing that you can start with? You don't have to do it all to start, right? But you can do one thing, right? So how do you break that down into those manageable goals and pieces and start to put it together, right? It might be as easy as that recognition, right? Memorial Day and Veterans Day as a special recognition for the veterans. And
understanding the difference.
Yes. Thank you.
Understanding that those are different events.
Yes.
With different purposes. I think that's a great approach, right?
Yep.
This is not something, and I actually draw a lot of parallels to the business that wants to be better at hiring veterans and the veteran that wants to utilize more resources, because there's no shortage of information, right? The amount of information is not the problem. To get that in some sort of consumable format, again, not a small task. So that's something that we're trying to achieve, because there's a lot of resources and a lot of great organizations for individual veterans. And at the Veterans Chamber, we try to organize that in a way that is consumable, where if we have a veteran conversation, they just tell us in human words what the problem is or what they're trying to achieve, and then we use our expertise. Oh, well, you need to talk to this organization, and it's not just you need to talk to this person at this organization, and here's their contact info. So it's not, here's a list of 5 organizations, you should talk to them, and then they have to go and do their own, find a contact. So trying to be that, concierge is a strong word, but, trying to be that resource of resources, that convener of.
But you're that network, right, connection.
Right. We don't have to do it because it's already being done by very passionate people, but we can act as that connector.
Right.
But there was a small gap in the training space for businesses, and that's where, this Invest in Vets is hopefully going to make some positive impact.
No, and I think you guys will, and that we're looking forward to working with you and being able to share those resources. And because, right, if they're there, but nobody knows that,
Right.
You
Isn't
run into
useful.
that same challenge.
For sure.
So.
I do want to circle back a little bit. You mentioned the alliances that you're working with. Tell people a little bit more, raise some awareness on those.
Yeah, so Northeast Wisconsin is home to a few different industry alliances. There's the New Manufacturing Alliance, managed by Anne Franz, and does phenomenal work, right? Manufacturing is 28% of our jobs in the Northeast Wisconsin. So they're doing a lot of great work of not only helping manufacturers understand different best practices and resources, but identifying those upskilling and recruiting techniques that are really going to help make sure that business or that industry is thriving, because it's the backbone of our economy here in Northeast Wisconsin. But the ones New North have been working with is we have the New Digital Alliance. So they're really focused on ensuring that we have the talent to meet our tech needs going forward. So do we have the software engineers and IT support and programmers and all of the different things that are needed to make sure that in this digital economy we are thriving and we are growing. And we have some really great companies here, not only in Northeast Wisconsin but across the state that are tech companies, and making sure that we have those resources. But then also looking at ways within the Digital Alliance of how are we establishing mentors so that individuals that are coming in and growing into that, can grow into those leadership positions, can enhance their own skills, and be able to have that pipeline that moves up through the talent chain, not just at that entry level piece, right? But that we're actually growing those strong leaders, because leaders are going to beget more leaders, right? That's just going to amplify, and that ripple effect that goes out from there. So we're excited to see some of the things that are going on there. We are working hard. AI is a huge thing. So last fall, we hosted a generative AI conversation, had tons of interest from, the region and individuals in the community. How do we use those different resources? How do you use things like Microsoft's ChatGPT or Autopilot to help with some of those, kind of routine, mundane tasks that help you be more effective in other areas? But we also know AI cuts across so much more. And every time you think you know something, it's changed and there's something new already. So the Digital Alliance is really looking to be kind of a go-to resource as people have questions. How can we bring in the right speakers? How can we identify those, that we're raising that education of it, that we're promoting those different opportunities as it relates to AI, and just getting that information out, along with cybersecurity. If you are not, here's a nice little pitch.
Right.
Cybersecurity matters in so many different ways. I was just on a call yesterday doing some troubleshooting on a tech issue, and the gentleman that was helping, was saying, telemarketers call. I mean, most of us don't answer those phone calls, but AI now can actually take, if you talk to them at all, can take your voice and graph your voice. And then they use that to call other family members, right? So it's not just the text message saying, I need gift cards of, blah, blah, blah. Now it's someone is calling and it's your voice saying, I'm in trouble. I need this. Can I have that? So, have a safe word, right?
Something.
What is a word that or a phrase that your family can use if this happens?
If you're in trouble.
Whether you have young kids or elderly parents, right? Unfortunately, these type of telemarketers are going to, prey upon people that are, might be more susceptible to falling for those scams. So have a safe word, understand what that is. But that's something the Digital Alliance too, right? Is how do we make sure we're aware of the different cyber threats that are happening around us, two, that we're helping, businesses have the resources and awareness of where to find that support to, protect against it. And three, just, elevating that conversation. So we're all being more thoughtful, taking care of our passwords, taking care of our computers, taking care of your phones.
Writing them on Post-it notes on your monitor.
Or putting them in your phone.
Right.
It's all good. It's all kind of good. So Digital Alliance doing great things. And then we also have been working very closely with the Construction Alliance. So again, one of the fastest growing industries that we have, not only in Northeast Wisconsin, but I think everywhere. You turn around and something new is being built. And it's not just housing, right? It's, how do you make sure you have the industrial workforce that you need to build new, businesses and put in that new manufacturing plant and have those different resources. So Construction Alliance has been around for a couple of years. They kind of started right before the pandemic. So pandemic hit and it kind of faltered a little bit.
Sure.
So we're working with them to kind of build up that awareness for communities, for businesses in the area to be connected to, again, really a strong focus on that talent pipeline, right? Like, how do we have enough fish in the pond that when everyone goes to fish, they can find the talent that they need, right? It's not just about what my workforce is needed, but collectively as an industry, what's needed from there. But also that leadership piece. I think you might have seen this maybe in the military too, right? Where you have young individuals who are really good at their job and put into a leadership role. And being good at your job and being put into a leadership role with no resources or training doesn't always equate to success. So we are looking at putting together some, leadership training that can help elevate people. Those people that want to move into those, project management type of roles and to be the foreman type of roles, have the skill sets and the resources and the mentoring that they're going to need to be successful, and that their teammates around them are going to be successful as well.
Are you familiar with the Peter Principle?
I just read that.
Yeah, so essentially it's just what you've said. So it's this concept that people get promoted to up to their level of incompetence. So you will succeed and then you'll get promoted and succeed, but at some point you will be promoted and not be as effective in that role. And that, the military being a case study for that it's not incorrect. So
it's all good though.
It is. But no, I think that's an important thing to talk about, that, there is high level collaboration going on, at specific sectors and industries. And,
we have an educational alliance too. Like, we have all these alliances.
Please, go ahead.
I know. One more. So New Era. So it's the New Educational Resource Alliance. And new, for those who are listening, we always talk about new because it's Northeast Wisconsin.
Yes,
so that's why we're new. But so New Era is the public universities. And so we have UW Oshkosh, UW Green Bay, Lakeshore Technical College, Moraine Park Technical, Fox Valley Technical, Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, and then the College of Menominee Nation. So it's the leaders, the chancellors and the presidents of those entities who meet on a peer-to-peer level and really talk about what are different ways that they can work together, right? So you don't necessarily have to start at a 4-year college, right? You can have those articulation agreements. You can have the 2+2 agreements. You can get dual credit in high school. How do you make sure all these different resources are available? Which
again leads into workforce readiness.
And you can come into that at any, right? It's not just, you don't have to be 18 going into college. And I think we see that more and more now, right? Like it's the non-traditional learner that are soon going to become the traditional learners in all of these different settings. People who are coming back for degrees, people who are coming back for some upskilling, or reskilling because things have changed so much, so what does that mean to come into these different entities? But then we're also we have a number of private institutions as well. So, Northeast Wisconsin has over 20 higher ed institutions. So, regardless of what your desire is, there's opportunities for you to build those skill sets.
For sure.
And really, you said it before, right? It's not to get the degree to show how much you learn, but that you can learn.
And you're willing to learn.
And you're willing to learn and willing to persevere and get through those different obstacles. But we have really great institutions here. So being able to work with them as well as it connects back into that workforce, right? Whether it's the, talent coming up and what we need, or, how do we make sure everyone has those skills that they're going to need to be successful is important.
And before you mentioned, transitioning service members being a very important piece, to a lot of these conversations. Obviously in higher ed, that was my path. I served 6 years, got effective duty, and I went to school right away. And that's a whole different journey, right? Because now I was 24. I felt in a room full of incoming freshmen, I felt 40, right? So that's an entire, and the particular 6 years that I was active duty, there were massive improvements in how people communicate, devices, all of that. Not that I didn't have it, but I didn't grow up with it. And all of these incoming freshmen had a particular way of interacting with this technology that I didn't. And so even though there was only a 6-year difference, again, I felt 105. Because mid-conversation, they're pulling out their phone and they're taking goofy pictures, and I'm just like, we're literally talking right now.
What is going on?
What are you doing? So there's the transition from active duty is already a thing. Yeah. And then to add the components of now, you are as isolated emotionally or culturally almost at that point that you can be, is you're walking the same path, but you're over here. So it's a very interesting challenge, and I give all the credit in the world to the Veterans Resource Center at Oshkosh, UW Oshkosh, where I, have gone to school previously, achieved a couple degrees, and that literally saved my path. Having a place to go after class and having peers there, like, you will not believe what these people are complaining about. My phone this, the dorm that, mild inconvenience this. And it's like, that doesn't sound that hard. It seems to be ruining your entire day. But yeah, that whole transition is a huge challenge. And then, and you're also in class, and you're working with a lot of faculty and staff that aren't veterans. So we talked about, employers having to do a little bit of research and put a little bit of effort in. I would implore faculty and staff, if you don't have, a robust veteran community on campus, wherever campus you are, reach out to us at the Veterans Chamber. I'd love to have a conversation with you, help you start something, help support what you already have, grow what you already have, whatever that looks like. Because I know, for me personally, that Veterans Resource Center, shout out to Sean Monroe, who was the coordinator, literally saved my path to have that place.
And again, it comes back to having that network,
exactly,
right, and those buddies. But I think, a couple of things. One, most of our institutions in Northeast Wisconsin have that resource.
Yes.
Right. So again, it's making sure that as people are coming in or choosing that path, they're aware. And they're aware that it's okay to go there, right?
Yes.
It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of failure. It is a sign of you are connecting with your network. And that is a sign of strength, right? So how are you leveraging those resources to be able to go into there? And then two, I think one of the greatest things about Wisconsin is our Wisconsin GI Bill, right? Like, you don't even have to, people talk about the Hazelwood Act in Texas, but you have to be a Texan in order to be even remotely qualified for that. Here in Wisconsin, we love you, whether you are from Wisconsin to begin with, or you just came here because it is the best state in the nation for you to come to. So, I think it's great that you can come in with your federal GI Bill. And then, as a Wisconsin resident, then you have access right away to the Wisconsin GI Bill. But once you establish residency as a non-enlisted Wisconsinite, you have access to that resource as well. And if you are unfortunately 30% service connected or higher, your whole family has access to the Wisconsin GI Bill.
Right.
And that's just a tremendous, I think it's a way that Wisconsin, again, our humble brag is we recognize your service and your sacrifice. And we want to make sure that you have resources that you can leverage that are going to help you be successful when you're back here in the state of Wisconsin.
And it really speaks to the understanding that policymakers have of a robust veteran workforce. There's ripple effects, positive ripple effects. Veterans are more likely to volunteer. Veterans are more likely to pursue, whatever, insert positive thing here. And I think it's fantastic. I know during my undergrad, I actually started working in the VRC that I mentioned earlier, and just learning about, all the benefits that are available just in education. We're not talking about VA health. We're not talking about anything else. Just education is really astounding and shows a commitment, from the state. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, right, you talk about all of the resources, our benefits available. The fact that we have a county veteran service officer in every county. So we have 72 counties in the state of Wisconsin, and each county has its own leader
And 11 tribes?
In 11 tribes.
Yep.
So you
TESOs.
You have access. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to do all those. You don't have to travel far.
You have to drive hours.
Right, to be connected to those individuals that can help you and that can connect you. Like you said before, we don't have to do it all, but we know the people who are doing those things that we can get you connected to. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have the answer, but I might know somebody who does. And I think that it's valuable. I know, again, we talked about alliances and we talked about kind of this very high level impact that's going on in Northeast Wisconsin. I want to talk a little bit about Lake Michigan and international shipping. Things that, we talked about the big companies in Wisconsin that I know not everybody's aware of, the Fortune 500, the Fortune 1000, the Fortune 2000 companies that we have in the state. There is potential opportunity for multinational corporations to expand or at least utilize the supply chain options or whether it's ports. I know Manitowoc is not just building, but also, a shipping hub, Milwaukee, obviously.
Yeah, Green Bay.
Green Bay. So if you can, just talk a little bit about because obviously moving post-pandemic, a little bit more awareness on supply chain strain, whether it's reshoring or, bringing things a little more closer to home. And maybe those companies I mentioned that are on those lists, maybe they want to utilize that shipping a little more than in the past.
Yeah, I think one of kind of the undertold stories is that access that we have with our lakes, right? It's not just about our clean water, but it's the fact that Lake Michigan, right? You can leave Chicago and come up through Lake Michigan. And if you need to, there's a port in Milwaukee that's a federal trade zone. The Port of Green Bay is a federal trade zone. We have a marine highway between Sturgeon Bay and Marinette, Wisconsin. So you have all of these different assets and these resources to be able to get your product from the Midwest to your destination by leveraging the port system and being able to, stop in and go from there. The Port of Green Bay, has 14 different stops along the Fox River as you come in. And they're one of the, top areas within our state or within the region from an employment standpoint. And I don't think people always think of the port, right? You think of the inconvenience sometimes as you watch the ship come through, but as you're watching the ship come through, just think of the economic impact. Think of the cement that they're bringing in because that's going to, help build your house or it's going to help with all these different things. So there's those different aspects that you have from it. But I think one of the great things is that it's cheaper than some of the other resources to go. You have that access to multiple ports along the way. It gets you in and out through the, the St. Lawrence Seaway out into the ocean to go anywhere and to really move your product in a safe and effective manner. Oshkosh is actually home to a transload facility for rail. So not only are you close to the port, but we have a rail system then that allows you to offload, get that, shipment going from here to that next destination. And we have that robust logistics, kind of corridor that really helps people move their shipments, whether it's coming into the United States or we're exporting out to some of those other locations. And, we remember in Los Angeles when the port was shut down, like that was a huge supply chain issue. We don't have that issue here in, the Midwest. And, we're getting people in, we're moving your stuff, we're getting you connected to the right facilities to offload that and then move it to those other locations. Transportation and logistics are just a huge, boon that we have here. Like we're strong in that area. So
and expertise.
And the expertise.
With the companies that we have that work in that space.
Yep.
That's, and again, that's something newer, again, post-pandemic that kind of got onto my radar. It was like, I was one of those people. I had never even thought of the logistics and supply chain.
The tonnage for the Port of Green Bay, right, it was 2 million something, 2019, and then clearly took a little bit of a dip from the pandemic, and it's starting to come back up, right? So you're starting to see that, the use of that as a, it's a fiscally responsible way to move product, right? It can get from here, it can get to there. And, I don't think people realize that, Sturgeon Bay is home to what we call the winter fleet here in Northeast Wisconsin, right? But those ships all need to be, right, they need to go through their maintenance. They need to have those repaired done.
I know a little bit about ship maintenance.
Just a smidge, right? So, Wisconsin is home to that winter fleet. The Lake Michigan fleet comes in, and we're able to make sure that they're ready to go once the ice is broken and we're moving forward again.
Very interesting. And we've touched on, as far as the next topic, we've touched on it a little bit. We mentioned it a little bit with supplier diversity. We mentioned, with these opportunities at large companies. But something that, again, is somewhat new, excuse me, just in my awareness is, yes, we have all these big companies. And we mentioned a little bit with the draft, but when these big companies need things, that's a business opportunity. You don't have to be a Fortune 500 company to capitalize on international opportunity. So if there is a new shift, where these ports are being either reutilized or even utilized at a higher rate than previously, that's an opportunity for small business. That's an opportunity where, maybe you supply a resource, maybe you supply a service. You mentioned with the draft security, that's obviously going to be a massive influx from what the normal demand is.
Correct.
But the great thing about being a vendor with a large company, that's a much more sustainable account than a one-time event. Obviously, the draft is awesome, but once it's done, it's done. So talk a little bit, if you can, we have these fantastic large, global companies. How can some of the smaller players maybe do a better job of utilizing some opportunity there?
Yeah, and I think our supply chain here in Northeast, specifically in Northeast Wisconsin, maybe doesn't get all the recognition that it deserves, right? We have two large OEMs from a defense manufacturing standpoint, right? So when you think about the number of different parts and pieces and people who are building, right, they're the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supply chain, we have a number of businesses that have started specifically to provide those, right, assets, those resources to those OEMs. Now, the thing to take in mind is to make sure that as you're becoming that supplier for that supply chain, that you're diversifying so that if, their federal contracts, right, are reduced, defense contracts are reduced, or, things change and things shift, that you're able to ebb and flow with the market, that you have other entities that you could provide your resources to as well, because that's going to help you from a sustainability standpoint. Make sure that when things are lean in other areas, you can still be a resource, for others, or identifying other opportunities for you to go through. But, I think for, one of it is, as larger, like the OEMs and the tier 1 manufacturers are starting to look more at their procurement process, right? And being more intentional with some of the DEI pieces that we had talked about at the top of the podcast, making sure that you're leveraging those resources, right? If you're a veteran-owned business, how are you connected with, the chamber, so that you're out there, right? So people know that you are, a veteran-owned business and that you could supply these pieces for you. So, connecting in on Widened Up is, whatever that is, that's going to help you elevate your profile and help people know that you're out there and available is going to be really important. And then it's just, it's really being thoughtful as a supplier of what those market trends are. So maybe you're not an expert in it, maybe that's not kind of your strong suit, but being connected to entities that can help you, or plugging into different resources or programs or summits or, podcasts that can help you, kind of say, what are those trends that are coming forward? What do I need to be aware of? As we come into 2024, there's a lot of talk about, is there going to be a slowdown in the market, right? There's, inflation is really causing some hiccups. And, we've heard you see a little bit of that inflation, kind of
disruption.
Disruption is a good word. Yeah. Regulating, people are slowing down a little bit. I don't know that we're going to have a full-on stop of anything, but, perhaps it's not going to be quite as accelerated going forward. But, keeping an eye on those things. The Department of Revenue puts out quarterly reports, monthly reports. In fact, I think they have on different assets and resources as you're looking about, what are those trends? What should you be aware of? So really taking advantage of those resources that are out there and available to help you. And then, leveraging the different organizations, right? Leveraging the colleges and the technical colleges to see if there's something that's, a gap that's happening out there, or, where are those opportunities?
Yeah, it just makes me think, and again, we've said it a couple of times when it comes to supplier diversity, but understanding that there are different levels, right? So you have the federal level, and I know specifically for a veteran-owned business or a service-connected disabled veteran-owned business, which is a lovely acronym when you stuff all that together. I know there are some challenges, to achieving that certification, and hopefully there's some growth in that area. And I know the Veterans Chamber, we do have some of those conversations, with decision makers and people who have the ability to influence that conversation, because there are barriers for that veteran-owned business that don't exist for other federally protected classes. Whether it's, different diverse groups, women-owned, there's all these federal designations to help meet those supplier diversity mandates. This isn't lofty goals. These are mandated supplier diversity. But in order to achieve that veteran journey is a little bit different. So just raising awareness of that and wanting to see a little movement in that would be great. But then even like you mentioned before with the state has its own supplier diversity goals, has its own process, to be recognized at the state level. And then those larger corporations with their CSR initiatives, those are goals, right? But those are goals that I support. I think it's great that you are in a position as a massive company, and we're talking about how to be a vendor with these massive companies, to see this expectation from consumers. What are your CSR goals? What are you doing to make sure that you are not just doing the same, benefiting the same old people, whatever that conversation takes the form of. I just think it's great. And I think the awareness, we have WPI, in the state that has all types of resources to help you not just complete the journey, but just to start. Even if you just have questions, I would encourage everybody to reach out to WPI if that's something that is of interest.
So WPI, an acronym soup, is Wisconsin Procurement Institute.
Thank you. Yes. But no, we work very closely with them because, another program we have at the Veterans Chamber is our Command Post, which is our business accelerator, which is morphing a little bit in 2024. Okay. So traditionally it was just 2 cohorts. You do the classroom and information session. We had a high-end retreat, all-inclusive type retreat. And what we're doing this year in 2024 is we are having, it's going to be a webinar format. So there's going to be less barriers for small businesses to receive that information.
That's awesome.
Because that's what we're trying to do ultimately, right? We want to help all small businesses that want it. And so we're doing a webinar format. It is initially going to be a membership benefit. So, check out the Veterans Chamber. We have very affordable options for membership. But wanting to help, small businesses because our membership at the Chamber is growing, and it's not just veteran-owned business or veteran-affiliated businesses. There are small businesses that see the value in what we're doing at the Veterans Chamber, and we want to encourage those businesses to engage with us as well. Again, selfless plug. You don't have to be a veteran or a veteran-owned business to participate with the Veterans Chamber. We just have veteran-specific programming that other 501c6s don't. But yeah, we are very collaborative. We work with a lot of local chambers. That's something that we're very committed to. We're working on new membership programs with those local chambers because it's our goal, again, to be collaborative. We don't want any sort of decrease, in membership or revenue for the local chambers, because local chambers are critical. What we want to be is a value add, so we're trying to work on a model and a narrative why it's beneficial to be a member of both. We don't want it to be, a pick and choose type conversation. Right.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that just defeats the purpose. because now you're just picking one for the other, and you're going to have a similar impact probably. But if you have a collaborative approach where, well, if you're a part of both, we help spread the word. I mean, what we've done half the time in this podcast, just awareness. What do people maybe not know about? And I think that's accomplished more efficiently when all the business associations work together. So that's part of our narrative as well.
Yeah, and I think we're really driven to that collaborative approach. I think that's our core value at New North, is to collaborate. We're here to help, right? We can't do everything.
Right.
And quite frankly, the local folks are doing a phenomenal job, right? We don't want to be in their way. Mm-hmm. We want to help them, right? And amplify that message. Quickly, you talked about, right, if you want to get into procurement or ways to do federal contracting, WPI is great. And then annually, there's the marketplace event in December of every year, usually in the Milwaukee area. Mm-hmm. But marketplace is a way for those diverse businesses to really be connected with opportunities. But there's a boot camp as well to really help you as you're just starting out into that procurement or federal contracting process. To learn more about what that is. What are those things that you need to have in place to meet those requirements? Because there are some strong requirements, not only, from the federal government, but even some suppliers have some pretty, as they're putting in more ESGs or what do you call them, CSRs?
Corporate social responsibility.
Yeah, CSRs, ESGs, alphabet soup.
Yeah, and more acronyms.
More acronyms. But, as those become more, prominent, mm-hmm. There's some more responsibilities that go for that. A local company that supplies to Walmart. Walmart has an ESG that has like a 25% reduction in plastic. And it's not just that supplier, but it's that supplier's supply chain, right? It's the same thing with the cybersecurity protocols for many of the defense people, right? Mm-hmm. So understanding that as a small business, there's some skin you have to put in the game to meet some of those requirements, but knowing that ahead of time so you're not caught off guard, right? So how do you prepare for that? What are those steps that you need to take to put into place to understand, does that fit for your business? Is that going to help you? Are you already doing that? And that can help elevate you into those other opportunities as well.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And again, to bring it full circle, in the veteran context, I mentioned the positive ripple effect, of more veterans coming to Wisconsin, and I mentioned volunteering, being something that veterans do at higher rate than non-veterans. Entrepreneurship is veterans are vastly overrepresented, in entrepreneurship. Yes. And again, for one reason or the other, there's a lot of different reasons people start businesses, whether it's the independence or just the controlling the narrative or controlling your purpose. Veterans tend to be very mission driven, so wanting to control, what, or have more control at least of what that looks like. And that's something obviously at the Veterans Chamber we're very committed to providing, as much expertise or at least referrals to experts to achieve that. And again, I think, my last point was, veteran opportunity. And I feel like we've woven that into just about everything.
Right?
Yeah. So I'm definitely happy with that. Is there anything else that you would want to cover with our time today?
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about the ESGs or the corporate social responsibility. That's something that, we're hearing at New North from business leaders more and more about. So we have a page on our website dedicated. If you're an investor in our organization, we're going to help promote that you have an ESG in place and help, just another way to make it visible to organizations or to talent, right? It's a huge, as you're looking at your talent pipeline, this next generation coming up, it's a key factor in their decision making. Mm-hmm. So helping to promote that, and then some of the great things that are going on within that is really important. But then also, how do we help more organizations be aware of that? So we're going to be doing some planning. We're going to be hosting a summit this spring in April sometime on ESGs. So how can we help more entities, learn more about that, learn about the things that they can do. Again, that first step, right? What are those first things that you can begin to do to incorporate so that you have those options and that opportunity So we're doing good for doing good and doing good for your business, and really helping to promote ways that we can be more efficient, more eco-friendly, connecting in with
Keep that clean water.
Keep that clean water, connecting into that social impact. I almost think it's coming back to that social impact. If you think back, to the early 1900s or, whatnot, it's local community. You thrived by the businesses that were your neighbors. Mm-hmm. And you even see that now, your small towns. Yep. It's those local owned businesses that are the ones that are going to be giving back, mm-hmm. right? They're already doing.
They sponsor the soccer teams.
They sponsor all of the different things. Yep. Some very quietly, some that but they're always giving. So how do we make sure we can get back to that from a broader perspective is really important. But it also speaks to DEI initiatives as well. So how do we make sure we do that? But the last thing I would say, I don't know if it's the last thing, but one last thing, when we think about, well, why Wisconsin? Okay, yeah, I can do all that everywhere, but it really is that we have a high quality of life. We have a low cost of living. You have neighbors that are going to help you out, right? It doesn't matter where you're from, what you're doing. Something comes on, someone's going to probably show up with some potluck dish. Right. You're going to get a casserole, welcoming you to the neighborhood.
Sure.
But they're there to help you out. And it's even from the business standpoint, right? Like, how do you come in? How do you get connected? We have so many great resources in the state, in this community, in this region for businesses to thrive, for entrepreneurs to thrive, right? We are one of the fastest growing tech entrepreneurial areas. Titletown Tech is a great example of what happens when you have a mission-driven investment into entrepreneurial opportunities, right? So it's a partnership with Microsoft, mm-hmm. the Green Bay Packers, right? The Brewers, the Bucks. Mm-hmm. They're on their second round of $25 million in funding. They are, creating opportunities here that we didn't have mm-hmm. 10 years ago, right? So if you are, an entrepreneur looking for a place to really take off, who watched the ball drop on New Year's Eve? Did you know that was done and managed from Green Bay, Wisconsin, mm-hmm. right? LiveX now is, right, they run their business out of Green Bay because the cost to do that business here is so much lower than what it is in New York. And you get the same result. And because the cost of living is lower, wage demand is less. It just makes too much sense in a digital world. Yep. So, and, as an individual wanting to move here, we talked about transitioning service members. Mm-hmm. We embody the values that made you enjoy your time in the military as well. And you're going to come into, right, a place where people are they respect your service. They don't need you to talk about your service all the time, but they respect that you served. Mm-hmm. And that's right. It's that humble brag. It's the humble brag that you get to have that this is who I was, this, who I am mm-hmm. and why it drives, what I do. But we're going to welcome you and your families here. We've had over 65 service members move to Northeast Wisconsin since 2021. Mm-hmm. And that's just huge, right? So be able to connect them with opportunities and careers and community where their families can thrive is really important. And recently Rent.com said Green Bay was the #1 community for remote work. Kind of a big deal. It's also like the #1 community to live in was also one of their more recent rankings. And it's not, again, just Green Bay, mm-hmm. right? That is Northeast Wisconsin. Yeah. That is what you're going to find regardless, and across Wisconsin. You're really going to find those opportunities. And you're right next to culture, right? Mm-hmm. We have all the different things that people are looking for. So I think that quality of life piece is really, really exciting. And we have 4 seasons. Yeah. 5 if you count football, but I do. Awesome. Well, I very much appreciate you making some time for us today. Yeah. So special thank you to Rebecca, to New North, to the Venture Project for helping us host this. And thank you so much. Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the economic landscape of Wisconsin. As we conclude today's conversation, remember that the future is brimming with opportunities waiting to be discovered. Your next big venture or partnership might be just one connection away. So don't let the dialogue end here. Follow the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber on social media, subscribe to our newsletter, and become part of a community that's as passionate about Wisconsin's future as you are. Whether you're a local entrepreneur, part of a large enterprise, or someone intrigued by the economic future of our state, your perspective and participation are what make Wisconsin truly thrive. Let's continue to explore, learn, and grow together. Until next time, this is Zach Zabel, thanking you for tuning in to Global Wisconsin. Stay connected, stay informed, and keep looking forward to the next opportunity on the horizon.